Game over, man. Game over.
Johnny.
You're gonna need a big approach.
Why so serious?
I am Iron Man.
This is a tasty burger.
Welcome to the In Session Film Podcast.
Welcome to this podcast review for January 5th, 2026, and I'm Jada Duran.
And I'm Brennan Cassidy.
Hey, thanks for joining us, everybody, for what is going to be our last review for our 2025 campaign. It's very exciting. This weekend will be the 2025 In Session Film Awards, where we will talk about Best Director, Best Actor, Best Cinematography, and Best International Film.
I'm not ready.
Where the voice of Hind Rajab could be in play for us. We shall see. But we will also be talking about our top 10 movies of the year. All of that is happening on episode 670 this weekend, so be on the lookout for that. And this being our last review of the season, which is very, very exciting. The voice of Hind Rajab. It is, of course, based on real events. We'll certainly talk about the filmmaking here and some of the incredible tactics that it uses. This film had its world premiere at Venice earlier in the year, back in September, where it won the Grand Jury Prize, which is very exciting. Certainly got it on a lot of people's radar at that time. It has since hit the festival circuit, and I think similarly to what we mentioned with the Chronology of Water, for those that listen to that review, I think this film had a limited release. Maybe we can look it up here, much like we did for the Chronology of Water.
Maybe you can do that quickly, because I was gonna note a pretty interesting fun fact about this movie's premiere at Venice. It received a 23-minute and 50-second standing ovation, which apparently is the record for longest applause at a film festival.
Wow. At any festival?
I think at any festival. I think the record before that was Pan's Labyrinth, which received a 22-minute standing ovation at the Cannes Film Festival in 2006. So that I guess that's true. That's pretty interesting if that's the case.
That is quite fascinating, and it's a film that I think warrants discussion and applause in a lot of ways. We'll certainly get into it. I can confirm that this film did get its limited release back in December on the 17th, and will be going nationwide. It is expanding on sometime in January, it says.
Okay.
January 2026. So be on the lookout. And it just says January 2026 at this point. So I don't know if there is an exact date, but coming soon.
Which means for those who live in, I don't know, somewhere in Idaho and you want to see this movie, you probably have to wait till April.
Perhaps. Yeah. I do wonder, this is conjecture on my end, but I do wonder if they kept that vague because they are waiting for Oscar nominations, which are on the 22nd, and want to time the release of this around that, hoping to get a nomination to boost its...
That's a fair marketing tactic, especially for a movie like this that it's kind of a hard sell, which we'll talk about, just given what the material is itself. And even some of the political circumstances around it. It's maybe a film that's also hard to describe for certain people, for certain general audiences who might have an interest in something like this.
Yeah. I think that's very true. And, this is a small international film, and it's going to be tough to get people to go and see it to begin with, to your point.
Yeah.
So any sort of boost that it can use to get it on people's radars, I think it's smart for them to use that to their advantage, for sure, if that is indeed what they are trying to do here. The voice of Hind Rajab is directed by Kaouther Ben Hania. I don't think that we discussed this officially in a review. I'm trying to recall. Perhaps you can correct me, but
4 Daughters. I thought we did.
4 Daughters. Yeah. Did we do that as a review? I'm trying to remember.
Maybe it was during a catch-up episode that we sort of squeezed in right before the award show that year that it came out, which I guess that was 2024, if I'm not
I think
mistaken.
it was 24. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually no, I could have sworn we did give that a review. I'm gonna look that up. I hope we
Yeah.
did. That's a very good documentary.
I know we talked about it on the show, but I don't know if it was an official review or in the context of some sort of catch-up episode we did for 2024.
On February 4th, 2024, podcast review for Four Daughters.
There you go. Look at that. We'll have to link to that in the description of this episode, or you can just go to insessionfilm.com because you can find all of our reviews there.
The beauty of Google.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, Four Daughters. I loved that movie.
That was really
I
good.
thought it was
That was
great.
really good. Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite docs of that year. I certainly had that nominated at the In Session Film Awards for 2024. And that was my introduction to Ben Hania as a filmmaker. I was pretty blown away by that film, of course, being a documentary, this film being a feature film, although it does act out as a docudrama in
Yeah,
many
we'll talk about it.
respects.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll certainly talk about that. But a filmmaker I am quite interested in. I'll just say that.
Sure.
All right. I guess the only thing I'll note here before we get into it, this was selected as the Tunisian entry for Best International Feature at the Academy Awards.
Yep.
It did make the shortlist back in December. Again, I do think they are, from a marketing perspective, to boost its, people's curiosity. They're probably waiting on those Oscar nominations, most likely.
Yeah. And it is also nominated for the Golden Globe
The
for
Golden
Best
Globe,
Non-English Language Movie. So,
Which, depending on when you listen to this episode, might be after the fact.
yeah.
We might have known by the time you're listening to this if it won or if it didn't. Either way,
I don't think it's going to win, but we can save those predictions for Shadon and everyone over there.
yeah, I agree. I don't think it's going to win either, but it is nominated. I think it's worth noting. It is
That's cool.
nominated for
Yeah,
Golden
that's
Globe.
cool.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, with that, let's go ahead and transition into this. The Voice of Hind Rajab. It is written and directed by Kaouther Ben Hania. It stars Shana Kalani, Motez Malhiz, Amir Hilhel, Clara Corey, and that's pretty much it. There are a few others that come and go throughout the film, but it's pretty much those four. And forgive me for butchering those names. I know that I was not even close.
We tried.
Did my best there. If you're not familiar with this film, Red Crescent volunteers receive an emergency call. A 6-year-old girl is trapped in a car under IDF fire in Gaza, pleading for rescue while trying to keep her on the line. They do everything they can to get an ambulance to her. As we noted, this is also it is based on a real event that took place on January 29th, 2024. So not that long ago.
Yeah.
Brendan, what did you think about The Voice of Hind Rajab?
I feel like we have to talk a little bit about the making of this movie as we get into our opening thoughts,
Yeah.
because I think in a way the making of this movie translates into how many of us feel about it. For a little bit more background on this particular event, the Red Crescent is the Palestinian Emergency Services, if I'm not mistaken, and it's their response to this particular call of a 5-year-old Palestinian girl named Hind Rajab, who, with her family in this vehicle, was attacked by Israel Defense Forces, if I'm not mistaken, during an Israeli invasion of the Gaza Strip. And from what I understand, Kaouther Ben Hania, she had another movie lined up after Four Daughters, but chose to fast track this movie given the devastation of that audio that she had access to of Hind Rajab.
Can we take a moment to read that quote, by the way? Because I think it's really powerful.
Yeah, go ahead. If you have it in front of you, go ahead.
Yeah, I have it. Quote, I was in the middle of the Oscar campaign for Four Daughters and mentally preparing to finally enter pre-production on a film I had been writing for 10 years. Then, during a layover at LAX, everything shifted. I heard an audio recording of Hind Rajab begging for help. By then, her voice had already spread across the internet. I contacted the Red Crescent and asked them to let me hear the full audio. It was about 70 minutes long and harrowing. After listening to it, I knew without a doubt that I had to drop everything else. I had to make this film. I spoke at length with Hin's mother, with the real people who were on the other end of that call, those who tried to help her. End quote.
Yeah. Yeah. Incredible story. Definitely showcases the inspiration and her tie to this political backdrop for sure. And she chose not to cast someone to play Hind Rajab. And the film chooses to give us the exact audio of Hind Rajab's
audio.
This is the real audio. So this movie is very literally a docudrama, as you highlighted earlier. This is kind of a strange fusion of documentary and narrative feature, but it doesn't necessarily feel like some of those reenactments that we often see with some of the most failed documentaries that try to reenact certain forms of actuality. This is a very interesting fusion of two very different forms of filmmaking. And the second that the movie ended, when I finished it maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, I actually saw this some time ago. My first thought was, I wonder if I would have liked this more if it were just a straight documentary. But then as I thought about it more, I don't know how else you make this movie. Because first off, I don't know what else Ben Hania would have had access to even make this a documentary other than just listening to the audio itself, right? She probably had no choice but to make it in this way. So if that is the case, regardless of how you feel about the movie, we have to praise a movie like this that is willing to give us this audio in the first place. I actually think film critic over at RogerEbert.com, Brian Tallarico, editor over there as well, actually said it best, saying that, quote, "I'm always a little conflicted when a tragedy involving a child is used in filmmaking, but I also believe that true action sometimes requires being confronted with visions of true horror instead of just reading or hearing about them." And he goes on to say more about how this movie is the confrontation its victim deserves, and end quotes there. And I think there is a lot of validity in that, which is why this movie has kind of stuck with me. And I think it's because of its willingness to go there and give us something that might seem very uncomfortable for many people. And I really, really appreciate that. And even though I was maybe a little bit uncertain as to how much I liked the final product, because like I said, I thought I might have enjoyed this more if it were just a straight documentary, I'm now realizing I don't think there is any other way to tell this story. I think this is the way to tell this story. And it really has stuck with me as a very brave piece of filmmaking from 2025.
Yeah, this film is nothing short of devastating. It is absolutely tragic and fits the bill for the theme of 2025 that we've been talking about.
It's got to stop. It's got to stop.
It's got to stop. It's got to stop. It's too much. It is very overwhelming. All joking aside, though, this is a really powerful and necessary film because it gives a voice to the voiceless, to those who are constantly under fire and oppression, and to build your entire emotional force around the sound of the real Hind Rajab. It is stunning. It is absolutely incredible. The fear and panic in her voice, the feeling of being trapped and drowning in uncertainty, that would be hard to bear for any child, let alone one that is surrounded by dead family members and being shot at by a foreign military. It is hard to stomach, but it is what happened. And I do love how this film leans into its docudrama sensibilities, the editing of the phone calls, the way the camera moves to mimic real life phone camera footage that's been viral on social media, the bureaucratic bottlenecking that led to the death of an entire family, all of that. The filmmaking is astounding, and it gives credence to why these characters are so volatile. They know what's at stake, and if they don't act quickly, it's not going to end well. But if they just send in an ambulance without communication with the IDF, they're just going to bomb it. They're just going to bomb it. And it's easy to understand how one can forget red tape when all you're thinking about is a child in desperate peril, which is very much the case for Rana and Omar, two characters who are on the verge of a breakdown at every moment. And I just really adore how Ben Hania's direction brings cogency to that emotion. It's sensational, again, heartbreaking, to your point, a brave piece of filmmaking that I've quite loved as well. It's been a really great year for international film. I don't know where this slides in, but regardless of any of that, this is a really, really important movie that I think everyone should see.
Yeah, it's been growing for me. Like I said, I saw it about a month ago. My initial response was, I don't know if this is going to be one of my 5 favorite foreign language films of the year, but now I think it definitely will be. There are some that have lingered for me, and this one has lingered maybe even more so than many other films in general that I've seen this year. And I think a lot of it is that fusion of archival footage with the narrative feature here. It is very effortless. The performances here are very good, most notably from Sasha Kalani and Motaz Malhiz. I think they're the 2 standouts for sure, and also the ones that are asked to do the most emoting out of anyone here for sure. But I do think it's definitely a tricky thing because they're not just acting to sell the emotion. They're not just there to sell the drama. They're there to make you believe that this actually was real at the same time, to the point that if you came out of this movie tricked into thinking it actually was a straight up documentary, I could actually see that being a convincing argument for someone. I really could. And that's kind of the bravery of the movie, that it's willing to be that visceral and real in its depiction of all this. But as a piece of drama, it's also just a very powerful movie of watching people trying to be good at their jobs. It's a very good process movie. And that's another subgenre of ours that we talk about a lot on this show, JD, that we actually really like. And I think as a process movie, it's very effective. And I also think, once again, Ben Hania's direction and trying to fuse 2 completely different types of filmmaking mediums together is very well done. It reminded me quite a bit of, remember last year, the Persian film, The Seed of a Sacred Fig, I believe it was called, which did something pretty similar. That was a much more ambitious movie, and maybe tripped on some of those ambitions a little bit in its mid to final act. But I could see some similarities between the 2 as far as their overall approaches are concerned. But I do think this is certainly the more efficient and tightest version of that type of filmmaking style you can get. And in a way, it makes it one of the best directed films of the year too.
I agree. There is a conciseness to this film that I do really love. It is all about Hind Rajab and the stakes, everything we need to do to get her out of the situation. We need to do it. That energy that this film brings to it, which obviously renders, a tragic irony given what we know the end of this is going to be. Which is, again, what I love so much about this acting as a docudrama, to your point. And it very much is a fusion of the process and these characters being overwhelmed by their emotion in pretty much every moment of this film. And I think that's what I really love about Saja Kalani and Motaz Malhiz here as Rana and Omar, respectively, because these are 2 characters who are desperately involved here. In fact, Omar is the one who gets the call initially. And he is someone who cannot contain his emotion at any given turn. And he does not give a shit about
the process and what
he doesn't care about the process.
He doesn't care what the higher ups say. But I think what's interesting too is when he first walks into the office, he looks a little bit despondent, like he's kind of sick of this job a little bit. And I don't know if that's true for the real individual that he is perhaps portraying, but I do like, dramatically speaking, that it does give him a little bit of an arc as well, despite how brief that this movie is. So there's at least some character development, I guess you could say, to put it as simply as possible.
Sure. And I think when you're in that job, there is a level of, you deal with these emergencies on a day-to-day basis that you're not going to inherently react to the trauma as deeply as you and I would if we walked into that call center for the very first time. He does have some experience.
He's perhaps a little bit numb to the process, which in a way makes this particular call from Hind Rajab so powerful because this
Exactly.
is something new for even him.
Exactly. And that's the specificity of that arc that you're talking about that I think is incredible here. And similarly, I think the same thing can be said for Rana because she's at the end of her shift. She's about to leave. I'm going home. There's this call. Do I have to be on this call? Similarly, there's this, I don't really want to be here. I just want to go home. I've had a long day.
Yeah.
But then she gets on the call and has the same reaction. She understands the stakes. It's hearing the child's voice in the context of her being trapped in this car with the rest of her family dead around her.
Yeah.
And something about that specific image that just taps into your humanity in this deep, palpable way that leaves those two characters incredibly volatile.
Yeah.
And they are endlessly cathartic throughout this film, as I think a lot of us would given the circumstances. I can't even imagine
For sure. Yeah.
what it would be like to be in that situation. And to see that dichotomy of red tape and bureaucracy just constantly up against your innate human instinct to want to save this girl at all costs. But you can't just go in there guns a-blazing. That doesn't tend to work out very well. And
No, it could make it worse. So you have to be very tactile and specific and strategic. And that's where I think this movie thrives. And I hate to undermine the movie given how serious and real that this story is, but it functions as a great thriller, just trying to figure out how they're going to go about this. And if you go into this movie not knowing what actually happens to 5-year-old Hind Rajab, the movie's even more thrilling because of that.
And that's why it very much functions incredibly well as a movie.
Yeah.
Not just a reenactment that we would see in a documentary, to your point earlier. That's not what this is at all. It very much functions very well as a movie on its own terms. And I think that's what I love about the Mahdi character here, played by Amir Hillel. Again, forgive me for butchering that name.
It's okay. It's all
I
good.
cannot say that one. But the Mahdi character is fascinating because he is in charge of the bureaucratic red tape. He's the one that has to communicate with the Red Cross and perhaps any sort of American involvement here, but he's also in contact with the IDF. He's the one that has to have those conversations to get clearance in order for an ambulance to come in. And he knows that if he just sends people in there, that it's going to cost those ambulance drivers their lives. And he talks specifically about how that's been the case. There's a whole section of one of the walls in his office that is dedicated to ambulance drivers that have lost their lives because they did send ambulances into Gaza and they've been killed as a result of their choices.
So then you lose even more lives in the process. So it's it's a fair argument. Yeah,
exactly. And you have to consider not just their lives, but their families as well. There's a lot of moving parts here and a lot of humanity at play. But similarly, again, I love how the film, it presents these obstacles, but then it always comes back to there is a 6-year-old girl trapped in a car under fire by herself.
Yeah.
It always comes back to that. And that's why these characters break down, because they just cannot wrap their hearts and minds around the fact that they have to do this loop-de-loop just to send in an ambulance.
Yeah.
It's wild. And it is crazy, but that's ultimately the point is that the film is trying to make, is the madness of all of this and the death and carnage.
It's a great process movie. It's got kind of an All the President's Men kind of vibe to it in a way. And that's not to overly Americanize a film like this, because it is very specific to its cultural territory. But there is something kind of accessible about the way it treats this story as a thriller without simultaneously being exploitative of this poor girl. It's still very respectful of this experience by giving voice to the voiceless, as you said. I, as you were talking, I was trying to look something up, because given a movie like Four Daughters, which is also a very good film, a documentary, and this one, my thought was, Kaouther Ben Hania, she must be a mother or something. And apparently she does not have children. And she clearly loves kids, given these two movies.
Yeah.
And there's a genuineness to how that is depicted, and even in the performance by Saja Kalani, who plays Rana here. While there isn't as much of an arc for that character as, let's say, compared to someone like Omar, the way that performance is handled, it almost fills in these gaps to make you think of what this person's history is and why she is so dedicated to helping this poor girl. It does make you think that she's maybe bringing her own home life into this a little bit. And the film never confirms that, but it also doesn't deny that. And I do
Yeah.
love when movies leave that open-ended and the performance is allowed to kind of it allows you to infer what their history is. In this movie,
Yeah.
even at 89 minutes, allows you to do all of these things.
Yeah. And it's such a fascinating performance in how it juxtaposes Omar emotionally speaking. Rana is quite cathartic here, but she's not as boisterous or as loud. And
Yeah.
I say that complimentary. I love that Omar wears his emotions on his sleeve. Rana is a little bit quieter in that regard, but I do love that performance. One of my favorite images of the film is Omar in Mahdi's office, and they're in the background. And this is the aftermath of one of those heated debates that they have. But in the foreground is Rana on the earpiece trying to talk to her, and she just cannot contain it anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just such a striking image. And again, I think it's even more powerful coming off the heels of that opening where she could have gone home. It was at the end of her shift. She could have left, but decides to stay and then becomes so emotionally enveloped in this situation.
She basically becomes Hind Rajab's therapist in a way.
Yeah, or like a pseudo family member for a moment.
Yeah.
And it's quite devastating. And to your point, I think the film does such a great job of channeling and grappling with these nuances and, of course, the emotional devastation these characters are experiencing without it ever feeling like exploitative trauma. I don't think it ever comes to that point. If it ever gets even close to that line, it might be the coda at the end when we do see the aftermath of what happened.
Yeah.
Not that I would ever call that exploitative. But
no, but I think that's necessary. I think it's
it's
giving
what
us
happened.
information. Yeah,
it's also
what happened.
happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I do think this film avoids that exploitative, emotional, manipulative string because it simply always comes back to these are the stakes. This is what's happening.
Yeah.
And it just lets the characters who are caught up in this situation, their innate human instincts come out as, again, we all would in this situation.
Yeah. It doesn't get too flashy with music or cinematography. It's all very efficient, which makes it one of the better directed films of the year. And as we're talking about this too, JD, we just got done reviewing this, where we're in the process of finishing up our review for this film. We also reviewed The Chronology of Water this week as well. And just before that, we wrapped up our top 10 scenes of 2025.
Yeah.
And for how much we're praising both of these movies, it's interesting we didn't even acknowledge these two that much, if at all, during our best scenes of the year episode. But I think there's a very clear reason why, and I do wish we did get the chance to acknowledge this at the end of our main show, episode 669, just recently, because there are some movies out there that are among the best of the year that aren't really like structured with scenes, right?
Yeah.
This is a movie where I don't think you can really pick a scene from because the whole movie is kind of a scene, right?
Yeah.
And then a movie like The Chronology of Water from earlier this week that we just talked about, it's more of a collection of images, a fragmentation of memories and
it's
images.
all splintered.
It's not like these movies. Some movies just don't have scenes, right? Even though this movie might be better than many of the movies that made our respective top tens for the best scenes of the year. But like some movies are just structured very differently, and that makes it so unique.
Yeah. If anything, for this film, it would like somehow boil it down to the moments where you hear the real Hind Rajab through the audio, just because that tactic here is so powerful to hear how that audio intersects with these dramatic performances. It's quite something to watch. I also quite love the ending to this film as well, because there's a moment where they're all in Mahdi's office. They still have Hind Rajab on the phone. And essentially what plays out is that the camera, it zooms in close to a cell phone, and the cell phone then essentially becomes the camera. And the phone is capturing in real time what was happening at that call center. And these are images that have gone viral on social media that Ben Hania simply recreates. And I love the trickery there of essentially turning the camera into a phone and capturing it verbatim, how the characters moved and, how they interacted with each other, what they were wearing. Like, it's all meticulous in terms of those details, and they get the movements down incredibly well. So it is interesting how you see the actors still on the fringes of the frame or in the background of the frame, even though the phone is up close to the camera, like what's happening inside the frame of the camera and how it's interacting with the edges of Ben Hadia's camera. Like the movement and choreography is just impeccable. Like it's just this fascinating little trick that just again brings you into the realness of this. That these are clips that eventually went super viral on social media. That this is a real thing that happened, and this is how it happened.
I'm glad you bring up that tactic that Ben Hania employs here, because it's not really the most innovative of tactics. We've seen stuff like this before. I can't think of a movie as an example, but we've seen things like, let's say, whoever's playing the president in a movie is giving an important real speech that was actually televised, right? Historically speaking, we might see the actual television footage that's filming the president, but then we'll see the blur of the actor doing it in the background, right? So like we'll see it that way. So it's in a way, it's kind of half of what Ben Hania is doing here. She somehow gives us the reenactment in conjunction with the archival footage, and the way that they're sometimes both spliced into the exact same scene at the same time, like that could have been a very jarring and uncomfortable thing to give us, and it could have looked artificial and fake. And I don't think it is. Like I don't think I've ever seen that example be that that well fused, right? I can't think of how to describe it. Like it takes it
is hard to articulate. I also hate, and sorry to, I guess, break the seriousness of this conversation. This is a dour movie after all.
Sure.
But to inject a little levity into this, I hate that as you were describing that, the first thing that came to my mind was Transformers Dark of the Moon.
That was actually what I was thinking of. That was the example I was thinking of. I was thinking of, I was thinking about that. I was also thinking a little bit of like Forrest Gump, which kind of fictionalized examples of that. But to your point, we've had many movies that do a tactic like this, but they'll blur the reenactment and just show us the archival footage that's then capturing that moment. But here it is doing both simultaneously. Yeah. And that's where I think Ben Hania could have fallen on her face, but she holds it together very well.
I agree. And it's distinct in the sense that her camera essentially becomes the iPhone camera.
Yeah.
Like it's fascinating how that fuses. So ultimately, like most of the frame at that point is the phone camera, but because Ben Hania's camera is zooming in on that phone camera, we still see the actors on the edge of the frame enacting the moment as they would in real time. So she's capturing the virality of the moment in the context of her own film. Like it's just such a fascinating, distinct way to do that. I mean, you are right. It's something we've seen before, but not necessarily in this specific way. That just makes it, again, I think it just brings the audience into the moment and the urgency of what's at play and also how big this was in the aftermath of it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, just, and it also kind of breaks redundancy and mundanity maybe a little bit, because dramatically speaking, it is a little repetitive, because what are these guys supposed to do? I mean, throughout the whole day, it's okay. Well, we're talking to him. We're having to deal with the bureaucrats. We're talking to him. We got to deal with the bureaucrats. I mean, that's
There's
essentially
not
all that's happening here.
There's not much upward momentum with this movie.
No. So
yeah.
it breaks rhythm and it breaks structure when all of a sudden she starts zooming in on the phone camera. And so I think that's a fascinating little way to also, just from a filmmaking perspective, cinematic perspective, to give the film some new energy.
Yeah, she had to get creative, because otherwise the film would just be very static. And narratively speaking, it is kind of static. So she has no other choice but to be creative with the camera. And I think she does it in ways that feel very new and innovative.
Yeah. And that's why this is a brisk 89 minutes. I mean, the film does not overstay its welcome by any stretch of the imagination. And of course, since we all know what happens, you just get to that ending and it's just devastating.
Yeah, it's not a joyful movie.
No.
Not one we can recommend to everyone, but I
an
think
important one.
I think it's required viewing. That's the challenging thing. It's like, I think everyone needs to see it, but I have a hard time recommending it at the same time. It's like, you have to be in the right headspace. You have to be ready to take this on, for sure.
Yeah.
And then I would say, okay, give this a go.
And look, if you've been watching any of these 2025 films as we have, you're in the headspace. You are in the emotional.
That is very true.
Heart space.
Yeah.
I mean, this year has been overwhelming. Well, in a good way. I mean, we've talked about a lot of great movies, but
it's been kind of mean, honestly.
it has been.
Yeah.
I mean, good Lord, between this, Chronology of Water, Hamnet, all those movies, man, it's been wild. But
yeah, you just know it's going to be your special category when we get to the In Session Film Awards, right?
Yeah, I don't even know what to do with that, honestly. I think I'm just going to list the films and be like, what the hell happened?
Yeah,
what was in the water this year?
Yeah.
What was in the Chronology of Water this year?
Not to be as very obvious and cruel with my phrasing here, but what killed all these babies in 2025?
I don't know, but it's heartbreaking. I think I said this on the main show this last week. But I need 2026 to be unicorns and rainbows and marshmallows. That's what I need.
Just give you a bunch of Transformers movies. How about that?
Yeah, good Lord, because it was heavy. It was a heavy fall season, but very good movies, very good. And all joking aside, this is an important one. It really is required viewing.
It is, and I've been liking it more since I saw it. I logged it back in early to mid December, and it's one that's been growing with me since I've seen it. It's one of those that has been escalating for me.
Yeah. And I think also what's interesting about this movie too is that in a sense it's inherently political, because it's the consequences of an ongoing war. But at the same time, I also love how this film avoids politics, or that it makes a political statement by simply saying, this is what's happening.
Well, yeah, because
this isn't some sort of mythological event. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's not something that is just on the internet for people to rage bait and get angry with. This is real. These are real people with real consequences. And here it is. And it's just showing you.
I mean, yeah,
what's going on.
And I don't know if this is the correct way to say this. This might be the wrong word to describe what this film is showing us, but the Red Crescent specifically and what their actions are, I mean, in a way, there's something kind of impartial about their job. Like given who they have to help, right? So they have to disregard. I mean, sometimes they can't, given the red tape as you're talking about, but emotionally speaking, they have to sometimes disregard what those political alignments are, right? Like in order to do something that's more humane. And I think this movie is indirectly showcasing that too.
I agree. I agree. So like I think it's such a fascinating approach to the material, and Ben Hania just simply using her strengths as a documentarian to bring this drama to life. And I mean, I'm always for a filmmaker trying to expand his or her range and their strengths, and maybe even tackle some of their weaknesses. But I will say, between Four Daughters and I haven't seen The Man Who Sold His Skin, but similarly, it sounds like it's also a blend of documentary truth and constructed cinema. Like this, she's very good at this. That was one of my favorite things about Four Daughters, is how it's a documentary. It's almost the inverse in a sense, where that's a documentary, but then she creates these dramatic sequences for them to reenact themselves.
Yeah.
And it is fascinating how that
it is
how that
absolutely.
plays out. And again, this is kind of the inverse. And I love how she's able to play in that sandbox. She's very, very good with her sandbox.
She very
Quite
much
incredible.
is. Good movie.
Anyway, good stuff.
Hard movie.
Heartbreaking. Good, yeah. Any other final thoughts here?
Yeah, like I think I have to adjust my star rating for this one on Letterboxd. This is admittedly a difficult movie to rate, just given the circumstances of it. I actually gave it a 3 out of 5 on Letterboxd, or 3.5 out of 5 rather, but it's better than that. It's like I said, that was very immediate at the time, because my initial thought was I think I would have preferred this as a documentary. But as we talked about, I don't know if there is another way to tell this story. And just circumstantially, I don't know if Ben Hania would have been able to make this as a straight documentary. I don't think she had the proper footage available to even turn it into that. Other than
without
just
it becoming a conventional doc about this event,
or
which I'm
just
sure there are out there, but
or just an audio file,
or just an audio, podcast.
Podcast, yeah. She would have made a podcast episode. But this one's been sticking with me. This one's lingering.
Yeah.
And it's one of those that I have a rough private list of how I feel like my rankings for the best movies of the year are going to be. Sometimes they shift. A lot of them kind of go up and down and things like that. But this is one that's been gradually going up and up and up and up and up.
Yeah.
And for the past like 3 weeks, it's kind of gone up like maybe almost 20 spots at this point. I love movies that can linger like that. That's a powerful thing.
Yeah, I can see why this won the Grand Jury Prize out at Venice.
Yeah, I can too.
I could see this sneaking into the Oscar 5 as well, especially given its importance. And I think there's a lot of people in the Academy who would want to champion a movie like this.
Yeah.
It's been a really great year for international features. It's going to be hard to screw up that category, but I could see this sneaking in. I really do.
Yeah, same.
Even though Neon is going to dominate that category for the most part.
I
could see it sneaking in. I think there's a path.
Things. There's a path.
Yeah.
I think it can happen. I don't think it's going to win if it gets there, but I think there's a path.
No. But I could see it get in, and that would be a win for that film, if even just getting in.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
For sure.
Was Four Daughters nominated for Best Documentary?
I don't think so, because if I remember correctly, I cried quite a bit about that. But no. Obviously, that's wrong. I'm an idiot, because I read the quote earlier where she was doing the Oscar campaign for it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I remember that as well. Yes, it was nominated. So, yeah, there we go.
You know, there's other docs that have missed that I've yelled and cried about.
Yeah, seriously.
But I was happy that one got in. Yeah. Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah, same.
Anyway, The Voice of Hind Rajab, it is coming to theaters near you pretty soon. Definitely urge people to go and see it, even though it's hard. It's a tough watch. It's hard to stomach, but an important watch nonetheless. All right. That is it for 2025. That's our last review of this cycle. We are done. It is now time for the In-Session Film Awards.
I'm calling in sick.
Are you ready?
I'm calling in sick for this.
Better not. Better not.
You and Dave can handle. It'll be a shorter show then.
Would it though? I don't know if it would. Maybe a little bit.
Are you and Dave taking the blame for that show's length?
I will say, of the three of us, you are the least to blame most of the time. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if I agree with that, but I tend to. You know what? Here's the thing. I tend to interject a lot, which does add thoughts and things for you guys to say. So in a way,
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So in a way, maybe I might speak less when it's my turn to speak, but I also provoke you guys to talk more. So
Yeah.
it's kind of
that's fair. I can.
It's kind of a
accept that.
double-edged thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a bit of a double-edged sword in that regard. But anyway, it's gonna be fun. It might be 14 hours long, but it's a great time. We always have a great year-end wrap-up show, and we hope that you all enjoy it as well.
Absolutely.
Again, episode 670. Be sure to subscribe to the channel or on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, however you listen to us. We really do appreciate you listening. It's going to be a fun weekend, so be on the lookout for the award show. We noted the chronology of water earlier in the conversation. That is available right now. Go and check that out. Episode 69, where we finish our top 10 scenes of the year by discussing our 5 through 1 selections.
Indeed.
That's available. Go and check that out. New Chasing the Gold, doing predictions for the Golden Globes this weekend, and New Women in Session out this week as well.
Absolutely.
With all of that said, stay tuned. It's going to be fun.
Busy.
Award show this weekend. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on the In Session Film Podcast.